Hello and welcome to this special edition of Banfield. I'm Elizabeth Smart in for Ashleigh tonight. On a show like this, focused on crime and justice, it can be easy to get caught up in all the darkness of it all. I know that well. Last night, I shared my story of survival with you. What it was like to be abducted from my bedroom at the age of 14 and held captive for 9 months. Abused in ways I wish on nobody, physically, sexually, and emotionally. But I and so many others are living proof that it's possible to survive crime, horrific and traumatizing events. Here's what the family of a 9-year-old Charlotte, a survivor herself after being abducted from a campground in upstate New York, told me last night about her ongoing recovery from her 48-hour nightmare last year.
I really want Charlotte to be seen as a survivor, for one, because she works really, really hard to be a survivor every day. And just think about how we talk about people who overcome anything really difficult in life, like cancer, for example. We say they're a cancer survivor. And Charlotte is a survivor of a really terrible experience, but she is surviving. She's working hard every day, and I'm going to follow her motto here, without fear. That's what she's doing. She's taking this and she's saying, this is not going to define me. I'm a survivor.
But sometimes survival requires help. This body cam video has just been released of New York City police officers talking a young man down off a literal ledge. It shows the compassionate side of law enforcement. And 2 of those heroic officers will join me live this hour. Also tonight, what would you do for love? A strange question to ask on a true crime show, or is it? The Netflix documentary Escaping Twin Flames investigates a controversial online community that promises to find your soulmate, or twin flame as they call it. But now former members are speaking out, saying they were indoctrinated and preyed upon by the founding couple who claimed to have special spiritual powers. So was it actually a cult? I'll speak to one former member in just a bit. Then 2 women taking on the disparities in missing persons cases. The founders of the Black and Missing Foundation join me to help bring attention to the victims and families you never see on national news. Janiyah Walker is a case in point, and her mother is also my guest this hour. Ashleigh, thank you for letting me take the reins again tonight. There's a lot to talk about, so let's get started. You never know what someone is going through, what might push them to the very brink of their existence. I understand this in a deeply personal way. When I was kidnapped and I was being raped daily, there came a point where I truly wondered if it would be better to be dead, because I had come from such a religious background where I had felt like my worth and my value was tied to my sexual purity, and nobody had ever explained to me that there's a difference between intimate, consensual sex versus rape and sexual violence. And so having lived and raised in that environment and then being raped, it really made me wonder if it was worth surviving. Made me wonder if maybe I was better off dead. So tonight, I want to show you body cam footage released by the New York City Police Department last week. It shows the rescue of a man perched on the ledge of a bridge who was also struggling to see any other options.
What's going on, brother? Talk to me. What's going on? We're here. You know what's funny? You people flagged us down for you. It means people care out there. People care. I care. I'm not going to judge anything in the past. I'm not going to judge who you are. The only thing I want to make sure is that you're okay and that you go home at the end of the day.
Talk to us down. Can you talk to us down here?
Can you talk to here? I don't want you to fall, God forbid. Just, you can sit down on this ledge over here.
Yeah.
Listen, you're not really alone if you think about it, okay?
Guys, for real, tomorrow's gonna be a better day.
People, everybody, all New Yorkers care about each other. I'll give you my personal number if you ever go through anything difficult. You can call me. My brother's in the same situation, and he made it out. If you need any advice and guidance, you have me, and you have these officers.
Joining me now are two of New York's finest, Officer John Anger and Sergeant Brian Kane. Officer Anger, describe what it was like to approach a situation like that.
At first, when we got onto the scene, it was very chaotic, very hectic. I got to be honest with you, I was very nervous. We ended up, we were sitting out there. It was a beautiful morning that day, and two individuals, they ended up, screaming out to their car towards us, like, hey, there's somebody on the bridge. They look like they're going to jump. So we ended up going up, and started canvassing the bridge. I got the left side, my partner had the right side. Ended up spotting the individual on the ledge, and he was perched up there. We ended up crossing traffic, and we started engaging him, like, hey, what's going on, brother? What's going on? And during that time frame, it was just, I don't know what's going on in this guy's head. And that's when you have to start with the rapport building, getting to know who he is.
I mean, when you go out there, do you feel, I guess I just think of myself when I feel like I internally would be panicking, seeing a person so close to possibly ending their life. I mean, how do you personally feel watching that possibly about to happen? That's when your training starts to kick in. We ended up having a 4-day training class. It's called Crisis Intervention Training. Basically, it teaches us on how to deal with people and kind of shed the uniform and really talk to them as a person, person to person, not as a police officer, but just as somebody that you want to get to know. And, as we were talking to him, you kind of get their name, you kind of get their background story, where they came from, who they know, if their parents are in town, And as time's going on, you just want to engage them and really, really know them. Did you feel like there was a moment that happened where you felt like that connection was made, that you're like, okay, we made it through to him? Or did you feel like you were talking maybe to someone who was turned off for a long time?
As we were talking to him, my main concern was to have him take himself out of the danger and speak to us. As we were engaging him, he's saying that, hey, I'm hearing voices, they're telling me to jump, I'm scared. And as we're, sitting there talking to him and discussing with them and getting to really know him, he, we started noticing that we actually started gaining, some compliance, some engagement. And he started to take his feet off one side of the ledge and towards closer to us. And that's when I know that we were really getting our success there.
I am so excited about both of you being here tonight because I love stories of people making a difference. And I just think it's just inspiring. It's encouraging to see, both of you here tonight, two of New York's finest, and knowing that you really succeeded in your job that day. How does that make you feel?
Well, thank you for having us today. It felt great. Like this officer said over here, it was a very nervous day for all of us. And we just wanted to make sure his safety was our paramount. It was just an incredible feeling that we were able to help this young man going through a crisis, to be in that situation, just that nobody was there for him. Thank God we were there. Thank God.
And I think one of you gave him your personal phone number. I mean, has he, if it's not too much to ask, has he contacted you, or do you know how he's doing?
That was me. I gave him my personal number. Just to see this young man struggle, I just want to let him know that I was actually there for him. That I'm, like my officer said over here, we're not just somebody in uniform, that we're actually real people. I just wanted to establish that real, authentic connection with this guy, that we're just not here as just another job.
I think that's incredible, and I'd hope that everyone seeing this would have some just belief and remember that police officers are more than just a uniform. They're people, and they have humanity, and they have life experiences that have brought them to this point. And you clearly didn't choose your job because you didn't want to make a difference. You did make a difference. Have you heard from him? Does anyone know if he's doing okay today?
I believe he's actually doing well. I haven't heard from him. I tried to actually visit him on patrol. He wasn't home, unfortunately.
Do you get the opportunity to follow up with people you've helped over the years often?
From my personal experience, believe it or not, even people that we arrest do approach us and thank us for getting them off their own ledge, dealing with anything drug-related or some other addiction. But I've had personal experience in myself. Officer over here probably can tell you as well.
Are you surprised by the attention that this video has brought to light?
I would have to say yeah, but it was just another day. We're at the right place, right time, and I'm proud to say that I'm glad that I was there.
So the training that you mentioned earlier, does every officer go through that, and is it something that you repeat? Do you feel really prepared now that you've gone through that?
Absolutely. The training does kick in. It's we get trained from the start when we first get into the police academy. You're trained on how to deal with people that are having crises and are having their worst day, and you're there to make sure that at the end of the day that they go home and that their issue is, or you get pointed into the right direction, that their issue gets resolved. The training continues. It always does. There's always another, video out there for retraining, or, you get the 4-day class for crisis intervention training. I think that was fantastic training. And I noticed that, a lot of things I was thinking back to, I'm like, okay, well, what I got to do next? What I got to do this? Okay, I definitely should ask him about this. And that training, it's very, very good to rely on.
Do you feel like you use that training frequently?
Yes. We are required to actually watch our videos. And even in this moment for this young man to think about committing suicide, we go home and ask ourselves, could we have done better? And we would talk to other mentors or other supervisors, just their feedback, and just so we can be better prepared for the New Yorkers.
I'm an emotional person. Like, I get teary-eyed all the time. I get emotional all the time. Is it ever hard to, separate the emotions of the moment and have your training kick in at the same time? Separate maybe your emotion, your person from your job. Is that ever hard?
I would say in the beginning it was very difficult. With time, just trying to understand everybody has their own strengths and weaknesses. Over time, we do get better at turning on the switch when we need to and turning it off. And our training does kick in, believe it or not. NYPD is incredible with their resources and just overall training.
I think that's incredible, and it's so hard. Even as I watched the video, even before this moment, just sitting here, I felt emotional watching it, and just, also what a special moment I imagine it must be for both of you when he did step off that ledge. Is that going to stay a highlight in your memory as part of highlight of your career?
I would say yes, definitely. That's something we all on the job want, is just a positive outcome. Just from my experience, just to establish like a friendship rapport with the person that's in crisis. That is our number one goal.
And you also had a third colleague with you.
Yes, it was Officer Ashleigh. Right now he's in the Marine Corps. He got stationed out for some training. Fortunately, he's not here with us tonight, but I just want to, give him a quick shout out because he did a great job out there. And I don't normally work with him, but he was one of my, I actually trained him when he was on field training. And honestly, to see him operate and work out there, and, it was like we're wearing the same pair of socks, That's the best way I could put it. He was very, very good.
I did not have really any interaction with police officers before my rescue. Before I was kidnapped, I didn't personally know any police officers. And to be honest, you were always figures of intimidation to me. It was always like, when my parents were driving on the freeway, it was always like, quick, press the brakes, there's an officer. Not that my family would ever speed. Oh, heavens, no. But I love this story, and I love spending this time with you, because even the day that I was rescued, it was it was still scary because I didn't know the officers personally. I didn't have interaction with them. I didn't know what was happening. And I just love today's story so much because you deserve so much gratitude and thanks. And a reminder that you are people and that you care, and you started your jobs and your careers. You dedicated your lives to helping others. And I love that so much. And I want to say thank you. Thank you. You do make a difference.
Thank you.
And thank you, Elizabeth. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
It means a lot.
Truly. It's an honor to have you both here today.
It's our pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having us.
Officer John Anger and Sergeant King, thank you. If you or someone you know is struggling and needs help, you can reach the Suicide and Crisis Hotline by dialing 988. Still to come, they joined an online dating course looking for love, but instead they say they were preyed upon for money and ripped from their families.
We had 38,000 people in the group.
This is the story of falling in love.
They were saying things like, "Are you ready for the ultimate love of your life?"
What Jeff and Ashleigh do has nothing to do with love. It's control.
A Netflix series exposes a self-help dating program whose leader says he's the second coming of Christ. Others say he's running a cult. A survivor who's now free to talk, and the maker of the film, Join Me Next. Do you have a twin flame? You might and not even know it. It's sort of like a soulmate. Or in the words of an organization called Twin Flames Universe, it's your ultimate lover and eternal spiritual complement, your perfect person. The universe was founded by a married couple named Jeff and Ashleigh Ian, who claim to help people find their one true love with courses costing up to $9,000. But former members say cost isn't the only problem with Twin Flames Universe. They say the founder uses cult-like coercion to control every aspect of members' lives, from choosing their romantic partners to cutting them off from friends and family, even forcing them to change their sexuality and gender identity. The shocking allegations are laid out in the Netflix series called Escaping Twin Flames. Take a look.
We had 38,000 people in the group.
This is the story of falling in love.
They were saying things like, "Are you ready for the ultimate love of your life?"
What Jeff and Ashleigh do has nothing to do with love. It's control.
You're getting some prime ass tea. None of it matters because you're his twin flame and this is your union.
Jeff taught us to pursue our twin flames at all costs.
When I spoke up about how I was feeling, I got shunned by Jeff and Ashleigh.
Liar! Andrew's lying! Andrew's lying!
Liar. You're either feminine at your core or masculine at your core.
I questioned Jeff, and his reply was, "How dare you question your God?" I guess
Stop talking, please.
Fine.
Let the man speak. The image of Christ was actually me, the second coming, not Jesus, the first coming.
It's insane what I ask of you, for you to have my divine light, and yet you get it, do you not?
How much power have I given to these people?
Dissolve the illusion and recognize that you're actually a man.
I felt like I didn't recognize myself.
We were forced to change so much about ourselves.
I just started crying because I felt like that was going to be our last conversation.
He already took my daughter. If anybody should be scared, it should be him.
I will never stop fighting for my sister to come home.
I'm joined now by Cecilia Peck, director and executive producer of Escaping Twin Flames, and Keely Griffin, a survivor of the Twin Flames experience, who tonight celebrates exactly 3 years free of the group. Keely, were you glad you made it out? Can you tell us how they pull people in? Can anyone fall for it?
Yeah, I was extremely fortunate to get out, and I felt very grateful once I realized what it was and that I had left and escaped and gotten out safely or at that point. And yes, unfortunately, anyone can fall prey to coercion or coercive tactics. Coercive control exists everywhere within our society, and anyone can fall victim to it.
Keely, I mean, how did you snap out of the cult's spell and get yourself out? I mean, did you find your twin flame? I mean, did they feel like everything that was promised to you?
Oh, no. I mean, it was all a lie. One giant web of lies that just kept getting worse and worse. And I think over time, it took about 6 months of this like waking up for me to finally leave. It was a long process. I had to basically deprogram myself in order to leave. My mind was so twisted, and I had watched so many hours of these classes and done so many of these meditation sessions that just messed with my memories and my mind and my ability to think critically.
Do you ever find yourself waking up in the morning or going throughout your day and have to remind yourself that you're free, that this is your life?
Oh, yeah. I think about it almost every day. I mean, less now since it's been a few years, but I mean, I remember that first month of being free, I just felt like I had just landed on this planet and everything was brand new. Like I could go outside and like eat the foods that I wanted, and just even being outside felt like a privilege at that point, because I hadn't gone outside in like a year at that point. So,
I mean, that's just incredible. I think I know having control taken away. I mean, I wasn't allowed to eat unless my captors gave me food. I wasn't allowed to drink unless they gave me water. But like, I'm just so proud of you. Well done for escaping. Well done for moving on. Cecilia, congrats on the film. How did you start investigating cults in the first place?
You know, someone I had worked with on another film had invited me to a women's group, and she was very persistent about it and said it would change my life. And then a year later, she called and said, and I never went, only because I was settled in my life with my career and my family, and I wasn't interested in the group. But she mentioned actresses who were part of it, and she then called and said that she had been in a cult and she was being pressured to recruit me into it. So that was my introduction to the cult called NXIVM. And we made a series called Seduced Inside the NXIVM Cult about that group. And it started our interest in exploring these groups that seem very positive and beneficial at the beginning, but then turn out to be very abusive and exploitative. So we had launched a website after that series for cult survivors or people trying to leave these groups. And Keely reached out, I think on the day you left Twin Flames Universe, just wanting to tell people about
3 years ago.
3 years ago today, I think.
Yeah.
Keely wanted to warn other women of the red flags of groups like this. And that's why we make these series, is to really show people how beneficial and positive it can seem, but how dangerous it can become, and also to highlight the courage of women like Keely who are willing to tell their stories to help other people get out of these groups or maybe not join one.
Keely, it started as an online community, but when does that change? How does that change?
Yeah, so it started as an online community, which I think made it seem less cult-like at the beginning, or less likely to be a cult. So I think that was part of what drew people in, or allowed us to get manipulated into it further. But eventually it did start to become more of a traditional on the grounds cult, and they're currently building a compound, and people are moving to the area where Jeff and Ashleigh live in Traverse City, Michigan, and they're building a church compound type of thing there. So unfortunately, it's heading in the trajectory of a lot of the past cults that we've seen.
And, you know, when I saw this, it just blew my mind. I could hardly believe it. But is it true? Like, was there really forced gender reassignment for members? I mean, were they really like trying to change people at their core of who they are, like even on a physical level?
Yeah, it's my opinion that that is the case. There's a lot of evidence to show. There's hundreds of hours of video footage that I tried to provide the producers to show that this is happening, to show that the people who are going through these transitions did not actually come to Jeff and Ashleigh with this idea themselves. This was implanted in them through these meditation exercises that they were forced to undergo. And it was Jeff and Ashleigh's idea. So, but we do still want to respect the members in there and their current gender and sexuality identities. And yeah, just give them the respect they deserve. But I think that Jeff and Ashleigh are very good at manipulating people and have absolutely manipulated these people into changing their entire identities, gender and sexuality, some of the most intimate identities that you have.
The story is just unbelievable. Congratulations on making it out. 3 years. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Keely Griffin and Cecilia Peck, thank you so much. Still to come, a staggering number. By some counts, around 800,000 kids go missing in the United States every year. That's more than 2,000 every day. Abductions, runaways, human trafficking, reason after reason, and the airwaves and internet can only make us aware of so many. Up next, the people behind a group that's making sure the alert and awareness services are fair to kids of all races and in every American community. We're trying to bring them all home. Stay with me. That's next. Welcome back to Banfield. I'm Elizabeth Smart, sitting in tonight for Ashleigh. When I was abducted more than 22 years ago, it was before the Amber Alert system was national. Most states had their own ways of spreading awareness about missing kids. My family was in Utah. This was one of the missing posters that police and my family tried to get as many eyes on as possible. But back then, people in another state might not be aware of missing or exploited kids somewhere else. That's different now. The National Amber Alert Network is law in all 50 states, and I'm hoping that one day there will be an international version. The founders of the Black and Missing Foundation are taking that awareness work one step further, focusing on missing kids and families in communities that historically have gotten far less media exposure. The founders of that group join me live tonight. Welcome to Natalie Wilson and Derica Wilson. Ladies, thank you for joining me. And I want to share with the audience that throughout our conversation, we will showcase the missing kids whose names and faces and details are on your website and social media platforms. Natalie, can you begin by telling me why you saw a need for an organization like yours? What moved you to create it? And do you see the awareness gap closing at all between law enforcement and communities of color when it comes to missing kids?
Well, I will say, 16 years ago, we started sounding the alarm that people of color are disappearing at an alarming rate from around the country. And typically, they did not receive any media coverage, law enforcement resources, or community engagement to be found. So Derica and I decided to join forces with our professions. I'm in media relations, Derica's in law enforcement, and those are the two critical professions and expertise needed to help bring awareness to these individuals that are typically overlooked. Since we have started the organization, we have seen some changes. We've made great strides, but we still have a lot more work to do. And I'm sure Derica will talk about the law enforcement piece of it. But we have been able to forge media partnerships around the country and locally to help amplify these cases.
I think back on my case, and I fully acknowledge that I'm not sure that there's another missing child who has ever gotten as much attention as my case did. And I firmly believe that all of that attention did help bring me home. I'm not sure that I would be here today, which makes me think that if every child received the same amount of attention, we would have so many more children back home with us today. I think what you're doing is so, so important. And I applaud your work so much. And following up, I mean, do you feel like the posters work? Do you feel like social media and exposure and TV appearances like you're doing now are bringing results?
I absolutely believe this. It's definitely bringing results, and also it's helping law enforcement with the resources that they need. Media applies pressure to law enforcement to dedicate more resources, and that's what it takes. It takes all of us. It's law enforcement, it's the media, and it's the community to help find and bring our missing home. And also from the law enforcement perspective, in the underserved communities, there's that lack of trust when it comes to our communities reporting to law enforcement. So what the Black and Missing Foundation is doing, we're bridging that gap. We're walking alongside these families. We're helping them navigate this, surreal world that they're dealing with when they're dealing with their loved one being missing.
I think it's so important. Oh, yes, please go ahead.
If I can also add, awareness is key. If our community, if our nation isn't aware of this human rights issue, then no one is going to do anything about it. As you mentioned, because of the media coverage you received, people were actively searching for you. And that's what we want to happen to these missing children and women and men from our community. We want the community to get involved to help to find them.
And where do you feel like you are seeing the most involvement on all of your different platforms? What seems to be working the most?
I think social media is very vital. I mean, we can't always wait on the 5 and 10 o'clock news cycle. We have to meet people where they are. Natalie and I, we travel often, and we're in the DC area, and heading to New York, it takes us 2.5 hours on a train. If someone goes missing at 12 noon, it's still before that 5 and 10 o'clock news cycle. So again, social media is very critical.
Do you feel like organizations like the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children and the FBI, do you feel like they get it wrong or fall short in serving communities of color?
There's a lot of work and training that needs to be done, and we need to be sensitive to those groups. So what we want to do is to work hand in hand and be partners in this fight to help stem sex trafficking. We know that children of color are victims of sex trafficking at a much higher rate than anyone else. And we want to be able to protect them. And the only way that we can do that is by working with organizations like the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, with the FBI, anyone, even with the media, again, to help bring awareness to this and to provide the training and the information that's needed to protect those that are most vulnerable.
I mean, you are doing so much work, and I feel like the world is so lucky. Our nation, our communities are so lucky to have you working as hard as you are working day in and day out. What are some of the biggest challenges that you've run into in reducing that kind of disparity in the missing kids reported?
I think from a law enforcement perspective, some of the challenges that we run into is when families are reporting their cases are oftentimes dismissed. Their law enforcement may not take the police report, or they're quick to label their child as a runaway. And we all know, as you mentioned with the Amber Alert, well, the classification runaway does not initiate an Amber Alert. It does not meet the criteria. And then when it comes to adults that are disappearing, their disappearance is often met with some sort of criminal activity. So we have to really walk alongside these families. We have to provide that coaching and working with law enforcement so they can actually see us as allies. We're not trying to step on their toes. What we want to do is be a resource to them. We know that there's a staffing issue across the country. So if we can utilize our resources to help amplify these cases, at the end of the day, we just want to bring that missing loved one home.
Natalie and Derica, I want you to know that you can call on me anytime that you need my help, and I will answer and I will come running, because I want every child to come back. I've been that child. I've been that missing child. I know how terrifying it is. I came back and I've listened to my family share the stories of how difficult it was, of how devastating it was, how it was almost impossible for my mom to get out of bed in the morning. So thank you so much for everything you do. And just know, I am here for you. Thank you. Stay right there. Up next, I will talk to a mother who is living the nightmare shared by far too many families in this country right now, the anguish and dread of a missing child. Her teenage daughter disappeared nearly 2 years ago. A last glimpse was caught on a grainy surveillance camera. Her struggle to get answers after 2 years of silence. That's next.
For auto insurance, Experian compares your current coverage with over 40 top providers.
I saved over $800.
We do the work, you save the money. Free at Experian.com/car.
My abduction was by far the most difficult experience for myself, for my family, my parents, my brothers, and my sister. They endured long months of not knowing where I was, if I was safe, if I was even alive. Now I'm a mother and a survivor, and still I can't imagine what hundreds of thousands of families are going through right now, facing the pain of a missing child. I want to welcome Miss Howard. Miss Howard's daughter, Janiyah Walker, is currently missing. She disappeared in Milwaukee almost 2 years ago at age 15. She's 17 today. What happened in June 2 years ago? We have this one security camera shot of Janiyah, and it's the last image that you have of her. But what happened?
That's difficult for me to watch. I don't know what happened. I was at work. She was supposed to get picked up by her dad that day to go do some business that she had to do to work at the pizza shuttle to continue her employment there. She was a minor and they needed her work permit. But unfortunately, I don't know. I believe, and I've always believed that she was lured away online. Someone told her to do this. I always felt that, and I know in my heart that's what happened to her. She was taken by someone that I don't know.
What have police or investigators told you about the search for her? Are there any updates?
No.
There's nothing.
No.
You know, we have this is an amazing photo of the two of you, and can you tell me about it? Where were you? You both look so happy. You look so close. You just look so at peace with each other.
Yeah. We didn't have any ill issues in our relationship. We had a very loving relationship. That was in a park. I remember it was in a park.
If your daughter was to see this show tonight, and if she's watching right now, what would you want her to know? What do you want to say to her?
I'm devastated. She could come home, and it would be a blessing if she could just come home. And I miss you and I love you. And we all miss you. It hurts. I don't know. It hurts.
I think sharing her story is so important because it's showing her face. It's helping to remind people to keep their eyes open, to be aware of the world around them, to not just put on their blinders and go to work or live their daily lives without paying attention. Sharing your story tonight is giving her story that attention, giving people the reminder to look out for her. I think you're so brave coming on because it's not easy. I have gone back and watched clips of my parents speaking to media when I was gone, and they looked just like you. They sounded just like you, completely devastated. It actually made me cry watching them cry. I just spoke to the founders of a group who work toward making sure missing kids from communities of color get fair exposure in the media. Do you feel like Janiah's disappearance is getting enough wide exposure?
I can't say that she's gotten enough exposure with my local, but I can definitely thank the Black and Missing Foundation because they have given my daughter a lot of exposure with connecting me to other medias, if you will, to put her story out there. So I don't know how much exposure, I don't know how much awareness is out there pertaining, to her, but I know that I've done several interviews with different media people to share. So I'm grateful for that. I really am.
Well, I am so grateful to be able to share her story tonight, and I want you to know we will keep on sharing it because we all want to see your daughter come home. So, Ms. Howard, thank you so much for joining me. Still to come, turning ideas into actions. There are hundreds of thousands of children at risk in the U.S. right now. Many of them don't even realize it. After the break, I'm going to give you some information that you can help use and maybe even save a life. For us tonight, before I sign off, I want to again say thank you to Ashleigh for sharing her show with me these past 2 nights. She'll be back at the desk tomorrow. Even though this is my final night hosting, I really hope we continue this conversation we've been having. I take my role as a child safety activist very seriously, and there is a lot you can do to help. Here are some stats you might not know. Every 73 seconds, an American is sexually assaulted, but only 6% of those assaults are ever reported. 1 million women are raped every year, but only 3% of their attackers spend time in jail. Daunting numbers, but numbers you can help change by visiting the website elizabethsmartfoundation.org. You can find a lot of resources to bring help and hope to people in danger. And if you or someone you know may be experiencing sexual violence or assault, please call the National Sexual Assault Hotline at 1-800-656-HOPE or just call 911. Reporting can save a life. Thank you so much for joining me. Cuomo starts next.